Have you ever been scrolling on your phone and wondered, why am I seeing this ad right now? Well, today, we're going on the hunt for customers to figure that out. We're going to look at the whole story of advertising, from old-school TV commercials to the super smart ads we see today. Let's dive in.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning with a really simple question. It doesn't matter if you're a giant company or just one person with an idea. What is the one thing you absolutely have to have for any business to even work?
And the answer, well, it's pretty simple. You need something to sell, right? A product or a service that someone else actually wants and is willing to pay for. That's the heart of it all. But how do you let people know you even exist? That's where advertising comes in.
Now, to understand advertising today, we kind of have to go back in time. So let's rewind the clock to a world before the internet, when finding customers was a totally different game.
Just think about it for a second. Maybe ask your parents or grandparents this. If a company wanted to sell them something, say a new car, where would they even see an ad for it?
Well, there were really four main places. You had your classic TV commercials, jingles on the radio, giant billboards on the side of the road, and of course ads in newspapers and magazines. The big thing to remember here is that these ads were just sent out to everybody, hoping the right person would see them.
And then, bam, the internet showed up. And this wasn't just a small little change. No, it completely flipped the world of advertising upside down and created a brand new way to talk to customers. So what was so different? What was the secret ingredient that made internet advertising so powerful and, so much more personal?
It all came down to this new idea called targeted advertising. Think of it this way. Instead of showing a car ad to 1 million people during a TV show, why not show it only to the people who are actually searching online for a new car? It's all about finding that perfect customer.
This brings up a really good question. Most of the websites and social media we use every day are totally free. So if we're not paying with our money, how are these companies making billions of dollars? What are they getting from us?
It's actually a pretty simple business plan. All the stuff you do online, the things you click on, the pages you like, what you search for, that's all really valuable information. Websites basically gather up that info and sell access to advertisers who want to reach people just like you.
So how does that even work? How are websites able to quietly collect so much information about us, about our interests, a lot of times without us even noticing?
The magic trick was something called a cookie, and it's a really simple 3-step process. First, you go to a website. Second, that site puts a tiny little file on your computer, and that's the cookie. And third, that little cookie just follows you around, taking notes on what you're interested in online.
Now, this was amazing for advertisers, but it started to make regular people feel a little uncomfortable. It opened up this huge conversation about data, about privacy, and about who's watching us when we're online.
So what was the big deal? Why did people start getting worried about all this online tracking? What was the actual problem?
It really all boiled down to one main feeling: a lack of privacy. People just weren't very comfortable with the idea that these huge companies knew so much personal stuff about them, and they started to speak up about it. And you know what? People complained so much that governments actually had to listen. They started to create new laws and new rules to give people back some control over their own information.
One of the biggest and most famous of these new laws is Europe's GDPR. That stands for General Data Protection Regulation. And its whole goal is pretty simple: give people more control over their personal data and make companies be honest about how they're using it.
Okay, so you can have rules, but rules don't mean much unless there are punishments for breaking them, right? So what happened when some of the biggest companies didn't follow these new privacy laws?
£3 billion. Just take a look at that number for a second. Wow. What in the world could a number that big have to do with data and advertising?
Well, that £3 billion, that's how much money just 5 of the biggest social media companies had to pay in fines by 2024 because they broke the data privacy rules. So yeah, these new laws definitely have teeth. So, with these huge fines and new rules, the advertising world had to change. Again. And that brings us to what's happening right now, and a new, smarter way of showing ads online.
Let's break it down. On one side, you have the old way, targeted advertising, that uses your personal data to follow you around. But on the other side, we have the new way, contextual advertising.
This is way simpler. It doesn't care who you are, it only cares about the website you're on. So if you're reading an article about baking, you might see an ad for flour. The ad matches the page, not the person. See the difference? So why are so many advertisers switching to this new method? Well, there are 3 really big reasons. It's usually cheaper for them, it still works really well, and, this is the important part, it respects everyone's privacy and follows the new laws. It's kind of like a win-win-win situation. And that brings us to our last big question. We've seen advertising go from billboards to cookies and now to this new contextual stuff. After this whole journey, do you think it's even possible for a company today to be successful without doing any advertising at all? Something to think about.